people who are on this earth with a more challenging journey, those with disabilities, illnesses, whatever it is, if you're in this life with that challenge, you have a pretty awesome spirit team helping you along the way. And connecting with that is what really helped me find my purpose. And I just want anybody listening who really feels like they're alone and their journey's difficult. It's like you've got a whole team rallying around you. You just got to learn how to tap in.
Welcome to the Multiple Truths podcast. We're your hosts, Holly
and Brittany. This is a space where we can come together healing in community, where we share our self-love journeys, insights, and wisdom.
A space with no hierarchy or judgment, fostering love, compassion, and respect, and where we honor our differences. With open minds and hearts, everyone's truth is welcome here. We are in this together. Let's dive into the episode.
Hello and welcome back to the Multiple Truths podcast. You are here with Brittany today, and at the time of me recording this, I'm going to be in Peru. You guys, I feel like so much change is coming. I don't know what you have all been experiencing, this first part of the year, but for me personally, I have this unexpected move. I'm traveling. There's just so much going on right now. So let me know what this first, not even half of the year, January, February, March, April, because this, I think, episode is coming out. I mean, at the time of me recording this, it's March, you guys, but this comes out end of April-ish. So let me know how you're doing. I'm curious about how 2025 has been treating you so far. I'm curious if you guys have been feeling these shifts, these changes as well. And yeah, I mean, I'm in my apartment right now, my current, living space, but at the time this video goes out, I'm going to be in Peru. Yay! I'm so excited. So I'll be coming back from Peru right before I move. So I'll share all of that with you guys, when I'm back and whatnot. But yay, I'm excited. And yeah, I'm going to be moving soon. This is going to be one of the last episodes that you'll see filmed here. I think the next two that I do are filmed here as well because they're pre-filmed. But yeah, this space that I'm in, if you've been following me for a bit, I moved in to this apartment in February of 2024 or mid-January of 2024. And this space is just, I'm so grateful for this space, you guys. It is exactly what I need. It's exactly what I need. It's like where the Multiple Truths podcast was birthed. It's kind of like the spot where we first started filming, when we first started recording. It's where the beehive was birthed. This was just such a birthing place. It's where, Holly and I started so many things. We started our healing circles. Like I was specifically living here, and obviously we've done so much recording in here. This space will honestly just have such a special place in my heart. Such a special place in my heart. It's like bittersweet. I love my patio. That's something that I'll always love and I'm gonna miss. But I'm really excited to be moving to my new space. I haven't really talked much about it, but yes, I can't believe I'm moving. I'm going to be moving closer to the ocean, so I'm really excited about that. Literally walking distance from where I am. So I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful. It's like bittersweet because I love the space, but I'm also like, I'm ready. Anyways, I'm ready. You guys, I feel like this next chapter, I'm really excited. I feel really excited for this next chapter. So let me know how you guys are doing the first few months of the year. Let me know if you're feeling the same or if you're, maybe you're in a different season of life. But without further ado, we are going to dive into today's episode. I'm going to introduce the guest. I have such an inspirational guest on, you guys. Her name is Lindsey Mazza, a lawyer, leadership wellness expert, and disability advocate who's passionate about making the world more inclusive. She's the founding partner of a multi-city law firm and someone who's been breaking barriers her entire life. In this episode, we talk about what real inclusivity looks like, her personal journey, and how she's using her voice to create change in both leadership and everyday spaces. So you guys, I got chills. She is just such a powerhouse. I honestly just have so much respect for her. I really, really do. It was such a beautiful and enlightening conversation. I know I learned a lot, really, having the opportunity to speak to her. She's recently had a TED Talk. Woo! I feel just like so proud of her and happy for her. She's really stepping into using her voice. And, we talk a lot in this episode specifically about advocating for those with disability. She's a disability advocate. She was born with a disability, and we get into this in the podcast, and she explains it and whatnot. So yeah, this is definitely a must listen episode. But without further ado, let's dive into the episode. Hello, Lindsey. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Thanks for having me, Brittany. I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm really excited to dive into conversation with you. For those listening, I actually gave Lindsey a reading a while back. I don't remember exactly when it was now. And I remember just hearing a bit of your story and thinking, wow, like I really would love to have you on the podcast. I feel like, ooh, it's like I'm getting chills as I'm feeling into this already. I just feel like you have so much wisdom, and I feel your story will touch a lot of people. I feel like there's just a lot of value that I feel you can share with our audience today. So before we, I guess, really jump in, I'm curious how this story. I'm trying to figure out where I want to start with this. Maybe you could just share a little bit about your story, and specifically for those listening, Lindsey, I know I mentioned this in the intro, but you are a disability advocate and you grew up with, is it Holt-Oram Syndrome? Am I pronouncing that
Yes.
correctly? I'm
Yes.
curious if you would be comfortable sharing what it was like to grow up with that, and how did that shape your perspective of the world?
Yeah. So Holt-Oram syndrome is it's congenital defect, and it causes upper limb differences as well as a heart condition. And my dad also had this syndrome. And growing up with it, my life's trajectory was very challenging. And actually, I didn't talk, even though it is a visible disability, I didn't start talking about it
Mm,
until probably 9 months ago.
wow.
Um, yeah. And it was because it didn't serve me to talk about my disability, because when I did, I was often met with resistance to the accommodations that I needed. So I
Mm,
built this barrier around myself of, it doesn't really matter because I'm not being seen for my difference and how I need to be accommodated. So I'm just going to stop
right.
talking about it and figure things out on my own.
Oh, I have chills listening. It sounds, and I'm so sorry. Like, I want to say it makes me emotional, actually. Just like, oh, I don't, this is a full moon yesterday. I'm feeling emotional just listening to this already. I just want to say I'm sorry that you really had to deal with that. Like, listening to how you were met with resistance. Um,
Mhm.
I can only imagine, like, just not feeling seen, not feeling valued, not feeling. I could only assume that it would have an effect on your self worth, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Um, I can't imagine. I mean, I don't have any, disability, so I don't know what it's like to walk, in your shoes. And I feel like, yeah, I just really want to hear your story. What's coming to mind is there was a girl who emailed this podcast in a while back. And she mentioned, and this is coming to mind right now, she mentioned that she had some sort of disability. I don't remember if she exactly said what the disability was. I don't think she did. But I remember my heart breaking for her because she was talking about how she wanted to like hide it, or she didn't feel good enough. She was embarrassed about it. She was ashamed of it. Um, and that just really, really breaks my heart because I feel like society, it's like everybody is so unique and different. And just because somebody might have a disability or something like that, I feel, I don't know what the word is, but it's sad how people view them as different. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm wondering if you have anything to say to the girl who wrote in, or just to people who are able-bodied. Like, what can we, anything that you want to say to us or to her, I would just love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah. So I mean, the earliest memory I have was when I was 6 years old. And I was in grade one, few weeks into grade one, and I had gone to the same school since ECE. And every year, my parents would make arrangements with the teacher and principal for the accommodations that I required. And one of them was that my best friend would be allowed to come with me to the washroom just in case I needed help. And I never had issues with it. And then one day I asked my grade one teacher to use the washroom, and she told me I could go, but I wasn't allowed to bring my friend. And I remember saying in my little grade six or little 6-year-old voice, but miss, my mom and dad said that I'm supposed to be allowed to bring my friend.
Mm.
And she looked back at me and she said, no. So off I went, 6 years old. And I remember sitting on the bathroom floor, scared and
Mm.
alone. And I must have been gone a long time trying to figure out what I was going to do. And in the end, I figured it out. But this was such a critical moment in my life because I realized so many things in that moment. And one of them was that I wasn't safe around adults that were charged with my care.
Mm. Whoa. That's, like me listening to this, trying to put my eyes into a 6-year-old who, you're helpless in a way. It's like you're
Mhm.
vulnerable and you want to be able to rely on these people of authority, these people that are older than you to provide safety for you. And the fact that you didn't feel safe, like that would be really scary. I could only imagine how scared and how alone you felt in that moment. 6 years old, too. And it makes me angry for you as well. Listening to that, I can only imagine your parents were angry. Like, did you tell your parents this?
Yeah, so like the cool thing about me that I've learned to like really appreciate is that I was very feisty. So
Yeah.
this could have been very crushing,
Yeah.
and it was in a lot of ways. Like it
Yeah.
did have a negative impact on me because
Yeah.
that was the moment started to feel trapped in my own body
Right.
and unsafe in my own body.
Right.
But I had enough awareness that I went home and I told my parents. And I'll never forget my dad pacing the floor
Mhm.
beside himself, and my mom, if this was a lawless land, the things that she would do to this
Mhm.
woman who, like there was no justifiable
Mm.
reason as to why she did this to me. And
Yeah.
the thing that my parents did really well is they always made sure I witnessed them advocating for me. So the next
Beautiful.
morning,
Mhm.
they brought me to school. They were together. They went. They spoke to the principal. The principal was beside himself because he couldn't understand. He had this conversation with the teacher, and the teacher was scolded. But
Mhm.
that's all that happened because I then had
Mm.
to sit in the classroom feeling unsafe the
Yeah.
rest of the year. But
Mm.
it taught me that I was always going to figure things out regardless of the situation that I was faced
Mm.
with. And it also taught me not to be afraid
Mm.
of adults and people that we are supposed to respect. I
Mm.
I learned very early that respect is earned.
Oh, I love that. I have full body chills feeling into
Mhm,
that. Again, I'm sorry you had to go through that, but just like what you've taken from it,
mhm,
just feels huge. Like I know just personally, somebody like me standing up to authority. No, 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 no. That's not something I ever did. If you were older than
mhm,
me, I respected you and I did not question it. And that's something that actually recently I've been working through even more because there's layers to how deeply rooted some of these things are. So again, I hate that you had to learn it in that sort of a way. Resilience just comes to mind, like resilient, resilient, resilient. I feel like you probably embody so much resilience. But I love that takeaway, and I think that that's beautiful, and I love how you said you were feisty, like, yes, you were. Um, that just makes me happy for, like, the little girl, like the six-year-old version of you. Um, I'm curious, you have a career in law. Did this and I know your dad was a lawyer as well, if I'm correct? He was also
a lawyer and a judge. He became a judge.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm curious if, I want to say following in his footsteps in a way, and, your dad had this disability as well. I'm curious, what was what inspired you to pursue law? Was it your dad? Was it this disability, a combination of all of it?
Yeah, I mean, my dad's story is really cool. And also, like, it's really a hero story. He was born in 1946. And baby boomer. And when he was born, the doctors took him from my grandparents. They didn't let them see him for 3 days. They hid him.
Mm.
And my grandfather actually had to demand that his wife and son were released from the hospital because they were going to put him in an institution. And had no idea what was wrong with my dad because the doctors weren't saying anything. They're like, there's something wrong with your baby and we got to do tests. So they were picturing all of these horrible things,
Right.
right? So when they met him and they were like, okay, so his arms are a bit different than anybody else's. They were like, this is our beautiful son, and we're going to make sure he has all these opportunities.
Mm.
And that's what they did. And they were Catholic, and the Catholic Church didn't want him, and neither did the Catholic school, but my grandparents made sure he was given the opportunities. And then he went on to have this like magnetic career and be
Mm.
this a judge during a time where like accommodations weren't something we
Mm.
talked about,
Right.
right? Accessibility wasn't a main topic of conversation. So watching his journey as a kid, being an advocate, it did inspire me, but
Mhm.
equally, because I was my own advocate my whole life, I thought law will be an easier road for me because I have these baked in skills,
Mhm.
and I won't have to rely on people to hire me because people wouldn't hire me. I was like openly discriminated against in job interviews. So I thought I'll just make my own path.
Right.
And that's what I did.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Um, I'm curious just on what you just said. You were openly discriminated in job interviews. Um, I'm curious if you're willing to share about that. And, the reason why I'm asking these questions is I just feel like these conversations are not had enough. And I mean, you could probably speak to this more than I can. I feel like just as society, as a collective, whenever somebody is different in any sort of way, it's like people feel threatened. They don't know what to do. And often that's like projected onto the person, unfortunately. So I feel like we need to have more of these conversations openly, so people are aware of what really goes on, because somebody like me who hasn't had a disability, I don't know anybody in my life personally who has had a disability. I feel like I'm also, I don't know if ignorant is the right word, but I'm not fully aware of everything that really does go on, for somebody who is living with a disability. So if you're open to sharing an example or an experience about that specifically.
Yeah, I mean, I can use law as an example. In order to get into law school, you have to write the entrance exams, the LSAT, right, which is the
Mhm.
law version of like the medical entrance exams. And I was denied accommodations to even write those exams, so I had to appeal. Like, this is in the legal profession that is founded on equality and justice. So I just need to paint that picture.
I feel
So I
like,
have
yeah, and like I have full body chills, and just listening to that, like it makes me feel like that's such obviously a contradiction. I
yeah.
feel like that's a huge window or a huge little indicator that the legal system is not actually just.
Oh, it's not. I have lots to say about the legal profession.
Mm.
Yeah, I hope people are listening because it is, yeah, so I had to go through an appeal process. I eventually was successful, wrote my exams, got into law school, graduated, and then I was launched into this profession that is not accessible. The courthouse that I was a lawyer at for 11 years is not accessible. I've never actually attended a courthouse that's fully accessible, and that is a government building.
Whoa. It feels like to me, that feels mind-blowing. Like,
Mhm.
that's off, like, that's terrible, that's awful. That's,
Mhm.
like I said before, it makes me angry. It feels like you've had to go through so many of these hurdles for no reason.
Mhm.
Do you know what I'm saying? It's like these hurdles should not be there.
Mhm.
These hurdles should not be there, period. And the fact that
Yeah.
they're there, we need to talk about it. So anything else that you want to like, if you want to share anything else about the legal system specifically or anything else, like give it to me. I'd love
Yeah.
to know.
I sat on the committee to have the courthouse assessed for accessibility and changed, and it went nowhere. I was stonewalled one meeting after the next. And so the reality is, candidly, when we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, that refers to every other group of people but those with disabilities.
Mm,
The boxes we are checking have to do with race, gender
mhm,
equality, sexual orientation. Those with disabilities continue to be excluded from the conversation
mhm,
and from any efforts to
mm,
bring them into the fold.
mm,
And like it's as small as any conference I've gone to, not fully accessible. And I raise it with the conference leaders, and they're the response I get is one of they're upset with me for highlighting their shortfall
mm.
because it's a very ego-based
Right.
response.
Blaming it on you, projecting it onto
Right.
you.
Like, how
You are the
dare you?
problem. Yeah.
Right. And then when I say to them, look around the room, I'm the only person here with a visible disability, and that's because others can't get through the door.
Yeah. Oh, it makes me like just listening to you, I just feel very emotional. It's appalling. It's honestly appalling. That behavior is disgusting. And it makes me sad for everybody who has a disability. I'm proud of you, like the resilience and the strength and the courage. I can only imagine that it takes to get to where you are, because I can only imagine it's easy to give up. Do you know what I'm saying? Like how discouraging it can be for people in these situations. It's easier to just kind of like accept that fact instead of fight. Um, I just feel like, and I'm sure you know this already, you are going to, it's like I'm seeing like like the visual I'm getting, it's like a boat in the water making waves. It's like you're making waves, like big waves that are going to ripple. And it's making me so emotional. Like, why am I so emotional today? The full moon energy. Um, but yeah, this is, I don't know, like I said, this is appalling. And with equity and everything like that, it makes me question, like, why are why are people with disabilities just constantly pushed to the side? It's like, what is the deeper root there? And I could easily say, like, oh, people are like uncomfortable and they're projecting it, but it's like, why? I don't know if you have any like thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I think the reality is there's such a systemic issue. So
Hmm.
my understanding is last time I checked, I think it's like 3% of lawyers identify in Canada as having a disability, which is
Mm.
absolutely not an accurate statistic.
Mm.
And it's because the people that we're polling and the statistics that we're taking within the world of employment is only focusing on the people who've obtained employment. Those with
Mm.
disabilities aren't like some can't even get to the interview,
Right.
right? And when
Mhm.
you're moving through a world that's not made for you, um, you know that if you're alerting the interviewer to a necessary accommodation, you're just not going to get the interview. Like that's the
Wow.
reality. So,
Mm.
people who operate and think differently, like I'm here to tell you, and I can confidently say I am a good lawyer. I was great at my job. I ran circles around people who had no disabilities,
Mm.
but I fought to get jobs. So
Mm.
this is not about giving me an opportunity because I have a disability.
Mm.
I absolutely was the best candidate for many
Mm.
jobs, but
Mm.
didn't get them.
I have full body chills as you're speaking, and I could only imagine how frustrating that would be.
Right, and that's why I didn't talk about my disability, and I did hide like, I have my podcast now called Hiding in Plain Sight, because that's what I
Mm.
was doing. Because like the resistance I would get, for example, the courthouse is also, most courthouses are quite antiquated, and they don't have the technology to support, um, when you're running a trial, being able to pull up documents on a PowerPoint or whatever, PowerPoint, slideshow, whatever it is. So it requires you to physically bring boxes to the courthouse.
Right.
So I just had to figure out my own accommodations, which meant I would make more money so that I could hire somebody to attend with me to the courthouse.
Right.
And then I would hear court staff commenting about how I thought I was better than everybody, always having somebody with me. And I'm like, are people like, so it was crazy to me, because I was like, to me, it's so obvious.
To me, like, when you said that, it's like, are people dumb? Like, and
They are.
like, that's
They
what's
are
coming to
dumb.
mind. It's like, is it, like you said, is it not apparently obvious? It's like,
Right.
what is going on in the mind there? That's genuinely just so shocking and appalling to me. Um, and I'm
Yeah.
curious with your disability, because I feel like, and this is not right, and I feel sad saying this, but I feel like a lot of people with disabilities feel as though it's like a limitation, because it does limit you. Unfortunately, it shouldn't be that way, because it should be accessible to everybody, jobs and whatever else it may be. I'm curious though, if you've, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm curious, have you seen your disability as a limitation, and has it ever shifted to embracing it as a strength?
Yeah. So what's interesting is, like, have, I don't identify as a disabled person. I
Mhm.
identify as somebody who's done a lot of cool shit in their life, who also happens to have a disability.
I love that.
And so I think, it's not an identifier. It's part of my story. It's not my entire
Mm.
story. And sure, life is more challenging, but,
Mhm.
you know, if you put people in a room to figure out a problem who
Mhm.
have disabilities, they're going to get there faster than somebody who's never had to navigate a world without a disability.
Oh, I have full chills. I believe that absolutely. It like creates different thinkers in a way, like
Yeah.
outside the box thinkers. And wow, the what's the word I'm looking for? The asset. The asset.
Yeah.
I feel somebody, oh, I have chills. The asset somebody with that sort of a brain or mentality would be to any group, I feel like is such an asset, for lack of better word. I love that. I love that perspective. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And it only shifted it was in the passing of my dad that I really shifted this, into this new journey of where I'm embracing it,
Mhm,
and
mhm,
I'm feeling called to really be talking about it more openly. And when I lost my dad, I've always had intuitive psychic gifts, but when I lost my dad, it really amplified it, because I started to hear him and I started
mhm,
to get really clear guidance, and
mhm.
I realized I had to shift my advocacy into a different space. So I will always be a lawyer. I'm not actively practicing as one now, because I know that I'm meant to do something
Mhm,
more unique.
mhm.
And the only way we're able to change things is if we're prepared to have hard conversations and be
Right.
honest.
Yeah.
And I've never had a problem about calling things as I see them.
Good.
So I'm
Good.
gonna keep doing it.
Yeah, good, as you should. I love that. I think that's beautiful, and I think it's beautiful that you are able to connect with your dad, and it's like he's still doing his work, but almost through you in a way, or
Yeah.
working with you, I should say. And you said your dad was a judge, so I could only imagine his journey to getting to where he was at as well was probably challenging. I feel like, did he see a lot of the same, I guess, blockages or hurdles that you are seeing, or have been through on your journey?
Yeah, I think he did in a lot of ways, though. I think he would tell people that my journey was more difficult than his.
Mhm.
And my aunt talks about how she tells the story of when I was born, he said to her, Lindsay's going to have a harder time than me because she's also a woman.
Yeah. And that was what was coming to
Yeah.
my mind. I was like, you're a woman, and I have full chills as I'm feeling into this. And just as we're talking about this, I sat with ayahuasca 2 weekends ago, and I'm not going to get too into detail about that journey, but one of the hardest journeys I've had thus far. And ayahuasca really showed me how deeply rooted the patriarchy is. It is.
Ooh.
And we know this already, but what she showed me is how deeply rooted it is. Even men with good hearts who mean well, at a subconscious level, a lot of men hate women, or they get triggered by seeing women, successful, because it's so deeply rooted. It's so ingrained, if that makes sense, that a lot of this is unconscious, and a lot of people are unaware of how deeply rooted it is. And it really opened my eyes, because ayahuasca showed me how much I personally have been suppressed because of the patriarchy. And I'm thinking, like, I live in Canada, I'm a white woman who, who doesn't have a disability. And I'm like, I can't even imagine what that world would be like for women of color, women in other parts of the world. Like I said, I live in Canada, women who do have disability. I can't even imagine, because like I said, she really opened my eyes just to what how it's affected me, but also just like the world as in a whole. So, looking to connect with like-minded community on your journey of self-growth, self-love, and spiritual discovery, join the Beehive, a supportive community hosted by Holly and I, designed to help you on your personal transformation and healing journey, and to help you tap into your innate wisdom with live monthly Q&A sessions, exclusive content, and a like-minded community. The Beehive is the perfect space to grow and step into your most authentic self. For more information and to sign up, check the link in the show notes. Going back to my question with you, like, that was something that was popping to my mind, is like, like your dad, I'm sure he had his fair share of hurdles, don't get me wrong, especially because he was, a generation older, which I feel like, as time goes, it's like we're starting to wake up more and more. With that said, there's still so much work that needs to be done. And yeah, you being a woman, because of the patriarchy, I can only imagine that much more just being kind of like dismissed or overlooked, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is that I need to be radically honest about is the women have learned to also hate women.
Yes, absolutely.
And especially in the corporate world, because I'm
Mm.
going to be honest, most of my allies in the corporate world were men,
Oh,
not women.
wow. Oh, I have
So
chills.
men would do stupid shit. Like the older men would say things like, sorry, I'm swearing. I don't
No, you're
know.
good. You're good.
They
Let it
would do
out.
things like, call me hun and
Yeah.
stuff, but the difference is like that's just them being, you know, I guess ignorant. There's no like malintent behind it,
Yeah.
but women saw me as their competitor and they would
Right.
be contrived
Mm-hmm.
and manipulative
Mm-hmm.
and mean.
Right. Yeah. The sister wound.
Yeah, totally. And
Yeah.
and I'm tired of the corporate world. Not, and you know what, outside the corporate world too, because I've noticed it in lots of spaces. I shared with you during our reading, Brittany, that even the spiritual wellness world's not inclusive.
Right.
But I'm tired of this conversation of women empower women. Let's have these empowerment groups, because
Fake.
don't call them that unless we're actually going to be helping raise each other up.
Yeah, yeah, it's like it feels like fake when that's not
Totally.
actually the case. It's like a mask, it's whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sister wound is so rooted, it's so ingrained as well, and it also stems from the patriarchy,
Yeah.
because, it's like women feel like we need to be present a certain way to be chosen to this and that creates that competition. And again, it's so deeply, deeply, deeply rooted. This is why, like, doing your inner healing is so important, because it's so, 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 so important, because eventually through that inner work, you'll no longer view other women as a threat or as competition. You'll genuinely come from a place of empowering other women when we realize we're all unique. We all have these beautiful, unique gifts that we all offer. It's like there is no competition. There shouldn't be competition. So I love that you mentioned that as well, because again, there's so much work that we just have to do as a society, as a collective. There's one thing that you said that I would love to touch on, especially, this podcast, we talk we talk a lot about spirituality, you obviously know that, but you mentioned even the spiritual world, the spiritual community, is, I forget exactly what you said, but not inclusive. I'm curious if you'd like to touch on that a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the wellness and spirituality space is rooted around, yoga and like specific kinds of
Mm,
meditation,
mhm,
kundalini, all of those things. And these are things that I can't participate in the way that they are being taught. And
mm,
for a long time, um, spirituality and leaning into my gifts was my safe space, and I felt that I didn't belong there either for a long time.
mm.
And it's also expensive, right?
Right.
It's very white in a lot of places.
Mhm,
And so I I think that we need to be opening that conversation up as well so that we can call in everyone. Because the,
mhm,
the thing that I've learned, whether I'm right or wrong, this is what I believe,
mhm,
is that people who are on this earth with a more challenging journey, those with disabilities, illnesses, whatever it is, if you're in this life with that challenge, you have a pretty awesome spirit team helping you along the way.
yeah, I have
It's like
chills.
you get
Yeah.
extra help.
Oh, I have chills. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and I think and connecting with that is what really helped me find my purpose. And I just want anybody
Mm,
listening who really feels like they're alone and their journey's difficult. It's like you've got a whole team rallying around you. You just got
mm,
to learn how to tap in.
mhm, and everybody has the ability to tap in, like, every
Yeah.
single one of us, it's our God-given birthright, so,
Mhm.
yeah, I just wanna touch on that too, like, if you are feeling like you can't communicate with your guides and whatnot, like, just be patient with yourself, know that it does take time, um but I love that you, yeah, are just because it's getting my wheels turning now, just like, yeah, how in the spiritual space, it's not inclusive when it comes to that for people who are unable to physically, do these
Mhm.
certain things. Yeah, it's making me a little emotional again. It definitely gives me a shift in perspective, because I do a lot of this work and stuff, and I feel like I'm like you're shifting my perspective right now. It's like, okay, like I want to really make sure that anything I put out there, how can I make sure that it is really inclusive for everybody? Because I do think that it's unfortunate, but it's something that I guess a lot of people don't even think about because they haven't experienced it, or they don't have anybody in their lives who
Mhm.
has experienced anything like that. I mean, that's, not saying that that's okay, but that's my experience. I haven't, I don't, I just being honest, I don't know anybody in my life who has, dealt with anything like that. So this conversation for me right now is just very, very eye opening. And it makes me emotional. I just really do appreciate it. And I just feel like I said before, you just having these conversations, um, is going to make waves, is going to make waves. Um,
Yeah. And I think giving people permission to understand that it's really the intention behind their
mhm,
spiritual practices. Like, and that's what I came to learn. Like, it
mm,
doesn't matter that I can't do the same hand positions that
right.
everybody else does. Like,
Mhm, mhm.
I see angels. Like I'm as connected as anybody else, right?
Yes.
The intention is all that
I
matters.
love that. Oh, and that's such an important piece, is absolutely right, is the intention. And
Mhm.
that's like anything really, like, talk about manifestation or whatever. It kind of like, it doesn't necessarily matter like what you're saying, but it's the intention behind it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like that's beautiful. Thank you for, yeah, sharing that as well. Um, you talk about redefining success. What does
Mhm.
success look like for you now compared to when you first started your career?
Yeah, so I think, when I first started my career, it's funny because the day that I was called to the bar, The day I officially became a lawyer, said the oath, was at this like Roy Thompson Hall in Toronto, and everybody around me was so excited that, this was their day. And I remember being full of dread on that day.
Mm,
I remember this full body knowing that I was like, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. But
mm,
I did the law school thing. I'm like, and I didn't know what
mhm,
else I was supposed to be doing. So
mhm,
I kept on that path, even though I knew
mhm,
instinctually there
mhm,
was something different I was supposed to be doing.
mhm.
So that you can only keep that up so long,
Yeah.
right? And sure, I had monetary success and I had done all of the things, ticked the boxes.
Mhm,
I had my own law firm. Like I was the epitome of success,
mhm.
but I was so miserable. And
Right.
when I lost my dad, it was a real pivotal moment for me because I went back to work and the passion had gone out and I was dealing with really awful people and lawyers who were at my dad's funeral relaying to me how much they respected him as a legal professional and extending their condolences were 2 weeks later trying to leverage my absence on files because I was off for bereavement. So I'm like, who are these humans that I'm existing with?
Mm,
And it really impacted my mental health. So I
mhm.
I got to the point where I was waking up in the mornings thinking it'd be easier to be dead than to practice law every day.
Wow.
And that forced me to look at my entire life. And
Mhm.
I remember, I saying to my dad, if you can hear me, I need you to help me find my way.
Mm,
And it was through that journey that I learned that I needed to stop rejecting my disability and really accepting all parts of myself
mm,
so that I could find my purpose. And I think it's in finding your purpose that you really figure out what success is.
mm. Oh, I think
Yeah.
that's beautiful. Um, I mean, again, that's terrible. Those people that were around you, like the devil in tarot is coming to mind, which is very much so about the ego, but just like toxic environment. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that you're out of it. And with
Mm.
talking about that, for those listening, Lindsay and I were chatting just briefly before we hopped on the podcast, and you were mentioning that you're going to be doing a TED Talk. Would you like to talk about that?
Yeah. So I've gone on this crazy journey. I left law in the fall, and I've just been really focusing on, I want to help. I'm helping other people find their purpose. That is what
Mhm,
I know that I'm here to do. So I do have mentoring and coaching because I've got both the business side and this personal development, and inspirational speaking is my real passion because I think that the more that I can share my story, and it doesn't matter whether you have a disability or not, the the reality is we all have parts of ourselves that we're rejecting.
mhm,
And
mhm,
I want to help people understand that there's really no bypassing that. Like if you really want to find your purpose, you
mhm,
really got to face it head on.
mhm.
So speaking's what I've set out to do, and manifesting's real for anybody who doesn't
Yeah.
believe because I put in my first application for a TED Talk and I got it, and I'm doing that next weekend, which, yeah, is
Oh,
crazy. Yeah.
I love this. That makes me just so excited for you. So excited for you. This episode will be out. I forget exactly when, but I think it'll be out like after you do your TED Talk, because I always film, ahead of time. So maybe you can. There will probably be a playback link. I'm assuming somewhere.
They do put them on YouTube, so
Okay.
once I have a link, yeah.
Okay, yeah, send me the link, and for those listening, I will put it in the description box below. You guys should go and check that out as well. Yeah, I'm excited for you. I feel like I want to say just like a glimpse into what's coming for you. I just feel like you're going to be doing a lot of this stuff. So
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's my goal. It's what I've been working on, and I'm writing a book right now, so hopefully that will
let's
be
hear.
out this year.
I'd love to
Yeah.
hear. I was funny. I was just going to ask you about a book because I feel like that might have come through in your reading. I don't remember, but
It did. Yeah,
why don't
it
you talk?
did.
Would you like to share a little bit
Yeah.
about the book? I'm curious what that's all about.
Yeah, so it's going to be a memoir slash like self help and I'm going to talk about my dad's journey paralleled with mine, because I
Mm,
really want to highlight the difference, but also the lack of evolution in a 40-year uh, difference,
right.
right, between his birth story and mine, and to just
Right.
really highlight that, you know, your ability and how you move through the world is really, it starts internally, and regardless of what is happening on the outside, you get to decide. And I think that, I was really privileged to have the parents that I have, because they understood the things that I needed to know in order to set
Mm-hmm.
me up for success.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that a lot of people don't have that, because
Mm-hmm.
doctors and teachers, I'm also here to tell people, don't listen to them when it comes to your kids. They don't know what your
Mm-hmm.
kid's future holds. And
Mm-hmm.
don't let your kid listen to what they have to say about all the things they don't think your kid's going to be able to do.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I'm an ex-teacher, and don't get me wrong, there's some amazing teachers out there with good
Mhm.
hearts, but the system, what's been ingrained in us, what teachers perpetuate is a
Mhm.
lot of it is just so limiting, so limiting.
Mhm.
So I love that you say that, like we need to really teach the youth how to think for themselves and to not be afraid to really go for their dreams, their aspirations. Because I know you and I grew up in a society where our dreams and aspirations were kind of just like, oh, that's not realistic, like that sort of a thing. Just
Mhm.
like, you can't do that, da 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 da. So I love that you mentioned it. And one thing you said that I want to touch on too was, the parallel. Your book is about your journey and your dad's, the parallels between them, or that's a part of it. And you talked about the lack of evolution.
Mhm.
I would love to hear more if you want to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, so like I told you my dad's birth story, mine was, because when my mom was pregnant with me, they had ultrasound, so they knew that I was going to have a disability. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't know exactly. So the hospital was ready, but when I was born, by C-section, the room was full of like 10 medical professionals. It was like a science experiment. And when I was born, it was like a pin drop, until one nurse in the background said, "How about we congratulate these parents on the birth of their child?"
Mm-hmm. Whoa.
And my dad would talk about how sterile it was and how
Mm-hmm.
insensitive it was. And then my parents were uninvited to their like baby Lamaze class, because they got wind that they had a kid with a disability. So like that was in 1987. Okay, so let's just,
They got
like, this,
uninvited.
I'm invited.
That's crazy to
So
me.
right. So, is that much better than my dad being taken from his parents 43 years earlier?
Yeah.
No.
Crazy. Crazy.
Right?
Because
Yeah.
you would think that there would be evolution, you know what I'm saying. But again, this is why we need to have these uncomfortable conversations. We need to, Earth is going through this death and rebirth. I talk about it a lot on my channel. I'm sure you're aware of that too. And a
Mhm.
lot of this darkness is coming up to surface so that we can see it, recognize it, and actually make change.
Mhm.
So just for those listening too, like what I feel called to say, yes, working on yourself is important. I always preach working on yourself, absolutely 100%. And you need to work on yourself, but it comes a point where you then need to I want to say like step out into the world, because I feel like a lot of people, they get stuck in the, oh, I'm not even going to look at the darkness that's
Mhm.
going on in the world. I'm just going to be positive. I'm just going to project positivity. I'm just going to focus on me, just focusing on self-love. And it's like Earth is doing its shadow work. Earth is doing its shadow work. As a collective, we are a collective. We are all one. It is our duty. It is our duty. It is our responsibility to look at the shadow. It's like doing shadow work on yourself. You can't evolve as a soul if you don't look at your own shadow and actually take action on it. You need to do enough work on yourself first so that when you do step out and advocate for whatever it is that you're advocating for, it's coming from a genuine place of love and not a place of projection. I feel like that's a lot of the problem with this world right now, is a lot of people, egos are clashing because people
Yeah.
haven't done enough work on themselves first. It's like people are just reacting, as opposed to, if that makes sense. But it's like, if you're listening, yes, focus on yourself. You always need to do that. But it comes a point where we, as a collective, we need to come together and we need to make change. And the shadows are not going to go away by ignoring it. Um, so
Yeah.
that's just something I just feel called to say as well. Um,
We need allies. Like at the
yes,
end of the day, like you need to focus on, just because an issue doesn't directly impact you doesn't mean you shouldn't be an ally.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Right? And
Yeah.
and the thing I like to remind people about disability is that any person in their lifetime can fall under the disabled category,
Mm,
because we have an aging population, illness, injury. Anybody can find themselves in a position where they require accessibility. So it's
mhm.
mind boggling to me that we don't focus on making society just accessible for
For
all.
everybody. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for sharing all of this. I'm curious, for those listening who feel like they don't fit in or struggle to embrace who they are, what advice would you give to them?
I I would say that there is power in not fitting in,
Mm,
because I'm glad that I didn't
mm,
fit in the legal world, cuz I
mm,
don't want to be one of those people that's running around tearing other people down.
mm,
I want to be part of the change, not the
mm.
problem. So I think that embracing not fitting in, and I'm not saying this flippantly because I know how hard it
It's not
is.
easy. Yeah.
It is not easy. But I think if I do you know who Kyle Gray is, right? Do you know who Kyle Gray
I
is?
know. Do you know what I know? I want to say, is Kyle Gray an author? I know the name. I
Yeah,
can't.
he's the angel guy. That he's just released his book, Angels Are With You Now. It's like his
Mm,
ninth book. And uh, I interviewed him for my podcast a few weeks ago, and he said something when I was interviewing him that was so profound but simple. And he said that what he realized was, if he was okay with him, then the rest of the world would be too.
mm,
And it really got me right in the guts, because I was like, that is the truth, because
yeah.
that is the definition of authenticity, is
Yeah.
being totally okay with you.
Hmm.
And and when when you do that, your people come to you as well,
Hmm.
right? You
Yes.
find your people.
Yes. It's because
Yeah.
it's like you're more recognizable, right? It's like when you peel off the masks, so many of us are
Mhm.
walking around with masks with these
Yeah.
huge shields, right? Because we haven't been taught that authenticity is safe. It's like we're taught,
Mhm.
oh, if you're different, you're shoved to the side, you're made fun of,
Yeah.
you're this, you're that. And humans crave connection at the end of the day. We want connection. So we feel
Mhm.
like the only way to have that connection is to put up these shields, these masks. But all that does is, yes, it'll attract people to you, but not your true people. You're attracting people based on these masks that you're presenting yourself with. So when you're able to peel back those masks and step into who you authentically are, which means accepting all parts of you, the shadow, the light, it's accepting all parts of you. And when you're able to integrate that and embody that and accept all of that, that's really when you'll, like you said, attract in though your people, those that are meant to find you, because you're going to be more recognizable that way. You're not in disguise anymore.
Right.
um
Yeah.
so I think that's beautiful. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because it's so true. It's so true. Just, when it comes to love and just relationships and anything in general, it's like when you're who you are, you're going to attract you are going to attract in the right people, the right relationships, the right opportunities. But it takes work, and it's not easy to get there, just because of the society that we live in. This is nobody's fault in particular. I'm not, it's just
Mhm.
how we've grown up. um I'm
But
curious.
people have to take sorry.
Sorry, no, 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 go ahead.
People also have to take ownership in their part,
Mm,
the role they're playing and where they
mhm,
are in their life too, right? And
yeah,
there's like that practical element of, life kicks people's asses, and it can be really hard. But
Mhm.
if you don't make a decision to not remain in a victim
Mhm.
position, right? And that doesn't mean not honoring everything you've been through, because
Right.
of course you need to
Mhm.
honor and give yourself the love,
Mhm.
so you can heal from those traumatic events. But
Mhm.
you have to make the next right move to help shift,
Yeah.
right, your own life. And it's putting one foot in front of the other, but nobody's going to do it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one step at a
Yeah,
time and it's taking
yeah,
responsibility. It's like there's
yeah,
a saying, I forget exactly what it is, but it's like your like the trauma you've endured is not your fault, but it is your responsibility. It's your responsibility to
yes,
heal.
yeah,
Um, yeah, so I feel like that's a beautiful reminder because it's easy to get stuck in victim mentality. It's so easy. And like you said, it's still honoring what you've been through and honoring your feelings and your emotions. But um, it's using these things. I feel like there's so much power in taking all of these things and using it to shape you, using it to as a catalyst for growth.
yeah.
But you have to be in the right mentality to perceive it in that way, which can be challenging.
We're interrupting this episode to share something close to our hearts, our virtual healing circles. We have been loving them so much and meeting so many of you incredible people through them. Brittany and I are passionate about bringing people together to support one another and heal in community. We felt alone on our paths for so long, and coming together in community has been instrumental to our growth, and we've both seen the importance in it. We aren't meant to do this alone. In unity and vulnerability, we find strength, courage, and support each other on our paths back to ourselves. Our monthly virtual seminars blend discussions, workshops, and practices to nurture your mind, body, and spirit. Whether seeking guidance, healing, or a listening ear, our gatherings offer a safe, inclusive space for people to connect, heal, and grow. Join us on this journey of healing in community. Together, we can heal, grow, and thrive. Register for the next circle using the link in the show notes. We hope to see you there.
But yeah, I'm curious if there's any final pieces of wisdom, advice, or anything that you would like to leave the audience with.
I think the only other thing that I really want people to understand is when you've decided you want to shift, you want to change things up in your life, you need to be prepared for the fact that a lot of the people that are currently in your life are not coming with you on that journey. And I think that makes people get stuck because it's hard. There's absolutely this shedding process that happens.
Mhm.
So it's really critical that if you feel alone, and you feel like you're not around people who get where you're at, you need to hire mentors. You need to
Mhm.
find the people that can be your allies on this journey.
Mm.
Because that's the only way that you won't have to do it alone. And I think
Right.
that that's the reality for everybody. I don't know anybody who hasn't had that experience.
Yeah. No, I love you're bringing that up too because this journey can be lonely.
Mhm,
I know for me, and I have chills as we're talking about this, like there was a period where I was very alone, even isolated, which
mhm.
we need connection. You know what I'm saying? Like it's okay to go into your hermit energy and focus inward, but we need connection. We need people that are going to be there for us to support us. I know I was very, very hyper independent and I'm like, I could do it alone. I don't need it, but I just, having that mentality can be quite toxic. So I love that too, because what's also coming to mind, it's like who you surround yourself with is
Mhm,
going to affect you. So if you're surrounding yourself with people who don't believe in you or who are not in the same mindset of you, it is going to drag you down. It's going to affect you. So it makes sense to needing to pull your energy away from those people, but you don't really want to isolate yourself either. So and nowadays there's so like it is easier access to finding these communities because of the internet, and stuff like that. It's important to be very mindful though of who if you hire a mentor or if you join a community, be very, very like have your discernment because also when people are vulnerable, it can be easy to get sucked into something that's not good as well, if that makes sense. Like cults are coming to mind or, so
oh,
it's so important.
100%.
Yeah, it's so important to use that discernment, but connection is important. So, yeah, have that discernment, but just like trust yourself and know that you don't have to do it alone. So, Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that, because I think that's really important as well. And for those listening, where can the audience find you?
Yeah, so my website is lindseymazza.com and my socials are on there. But on Instagram, it's the Lindsey Mazza. And yeah, I'm happy to connect with people and just, keep having this conversation and building a really inclusive and like radically honest,
Mm.
spiritual, badass community.
Radically honest. I love that.
Yeah.
Radically honest. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So for those listening, I'll have all of Lindsey's links and everything in the description below. Hopefully we'll have the TED Talk link by then. We'll see, but we'll add that in there whenever we do receive it. I do think we will receive it before this episode's out. Don't quote me on that though. But yeah, you'll find all of her stuff in the description below. Thank you so much for your time today, for your radical honesty today. Yeah, I feel like this was such a fruitful conversation. And for those listening, thank you so much for hanging out with us again. And until next time, we will see you next Wednesday. Bye.
As we wrap up today's episode, we want to extend our deepest gratitude for joining us on this journey. Your support does not go unnoticed. If you enjoyed this episode and find value in our conversations, please take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback not only helps us grow, but also allows us to reach more people who can benefit from our community of healing and support. Every review, every rating makes a difference. Thank you for being a part of the Multiple Truths podcast family. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Multiple Truths podcast. Keep speaking your truth and spreading your light. We love you, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.